true to my heritage from the East. And I think how you decide to balance those different things and align those different cultures is going to have a major impact on how the music is received in different regions of the world.
Thank you. 我觉得 Words 教授他说的非常的好，就是如果是发展一个不同文化的这样的一个艺术家的时候呢，我们再看一个全球化的这样的一个strategy， 那要看当地，就是我们要看保留这个艺术家的一个文化，同时也是要看在全球放眼看来，那有另外的那适合所有全球的一个通行的一个这样的元素，怎么样才把它结合起来做到更好？我觉得说的非常好，谢谢 ，Thank you。汉国。
So for me, I'm gonna speak more from an educational direction because I did mostly Western music. I did my studies 2 years in pre-college, 4 years of bachelor's, and 2 years in master's in the Juilliard School. So it's primarily focused on Western music. But throughout the studies, we have looked at the history of the world, world history of music throughout, and it's very unique. The different characteristics and uniqueness of the Western music compared to Chinese music. We're talking about more vertical for the Western music, more focus on systematic approach of harmony and rhythm. So it's very easy to pass down very detailed every generation what the music was and improve and enhance upon that year after year. While in the East, we're so much more focused also on instead the horizontal aspect of music. We're talking more passing down music orally through melodies, and not so much because there wasn't such a strict system. It wasn't so much contained with a specific rhythmic. So there could be much more freedom with how you use the rhythm, and even the pitches. You could use pitches less than a semitone. It doesn't have to be the perfect major-minor scale. There were pentatonic scales and even scales with microtonal relationships. So I think the incorporation of we're talking about time and space here. Throughout history, we've had composers like Debussy and Weber who wrote pieces like Turandot that used the Chinese culture and story inside of music, or Debussy using the pentatonic scale in his prelude. And for modern day, I think we can really continue to build upon that. Look at the characteristics, the best of both worlds, put it together, and what can we create that's even more special that everybody can enjoy.
谢谢。那汉博的分享我觉得非常的好，他是从历史跟乐理方面来说。那在西方的音乐，其实很早，德彪西就已经用了我们中国的元素来比如说你在他的那个很多的歌里面能够听到，歌曲里面、钢琴曲里面能够听到。还有韦伯作曲家，他也用了我们中国的元素，比如说在图兰朵的歌剧里面，我们也很早就听到了这样的元素。然后西方的音乐跟东方的音乐的不同，其实有很多的东西了，不管是我们的和声，还是我们注重旋律方面，都是非常不一样。但是我们会找到一个方式来把它自己融合在一起。但是说到融合，艺兴你之前做了很多的尝试，而且你的成绩也非常非常的耀眼。你有做过双语的专辑，然后也和很多优秀的海外音乐人合作。那您提出的刚才的，就是我们听到那么详细的介绍的M-pop。你觉得就是这个概念，你是想让用很多不同的元素，在 based on 这个中文的基础上，然后注入到同一个作品当中。那现在就是与越来越多的海外音乐人跟制作人在合作的时候，这种过程给你带来什么样的感触呢？
我觉得最大的感触是中国乐器如何使用吧。我相信在座也有很多人自己会用program 去做一些production， 对吧？所以就是现在你们在用中国乐器的时候，你们要知道中国乐器跟西洋乐器最大的，我自己觉得中国乐器跟西洋乐器最大的差距是，西洋乐器更多的是以合奏为主，而中国的乐器它的 lead 的能力是非常强的。比方说唢呐一出来的时候，基本上可以把 synthesizer 给秒了，对吧？这种情况是很常见的。那它那么独特的这种声音，你如何去运用它？你如何运用唢呐？你是用整个3分钟的歌，还是用1分钟的歌？是运用在1分钟里，还是运用在3分钟里，或者是在你的 hook 的30秒里？这个东西是根据制作人自己对于这个乐器的了解和尝试和实验，慢慢会有一条非常，也不能说是有一条完全正确的道路，因为不同的你们想表达的这些主题不一样的时候，当你使用的中国乐器可能也会不一样。你比方说，我有一首歌叫《麻婆豆腐》。 麻婆豆腐，对，麻婆豆腐就是比较火辣的那种，所以我在 hook 的部分采用了二胡，对吧？然后在这个Val 这首歌里面，我也是采用了二胡来作为 lead 的这样的乐器，在高潮部分 hook 部分，所以我觉得这样的使用，我觉得是非常值得去尝试。
所以在运用各种不同的中国乐器的时候，首先要对它这个乐器有个了解，然后来尝试一种新的一种创作。我很想知道，如果就是你在跟海外音乐人他们在制作音乐的时候，当他们听到二胡的时候是什么样的？他们觉得辣吗？
他们不知道那个时候，因为我们在做这个 beat 的时候，比方说 Well 这个歌，我们是在2019年做的吧？是2019年？不好意思，2018年。对，2018年做完了 Well 这首歌。然后 Well 其实这首歌做完了以后，我就一直在不断的尝试，就是把那个 track 分轨拿到了以后，我一直在尝试不同的乐器，看加到里面是什么感觉。然后最后把二胡加上去，觉得这个味道非常对，然后也没有跟他们讲，我就已经放进去。
那其实你也是文化的传播者，让更多的人知道我们的国粹。
对。
谢谢。那汉博，您作为海外的音乐人，我知道你也在不断的尝试把不同的艺术形式结合在一起，能分享一下你的经历跟感受吗？
Yeah. So for my experience, I believe myself to also be a very strong advocate to trying to integrate East and West music because I've had so many different experiences and run-ins with this situation. I have written 3 albums already right now, and I'll start from there. So there's a very nice instrumental piece I wrote here that's called Fallen Leaves. I start that piece with a solo piano, and it's a very calm and serene piece. You feel like that's how it's going to be, and then in the middle of the piece, I add in the guzheng, I think is the third. Yeah. So we add that in, and immediately, as the listener, you feel like the scenery changes. The moment that sound comes in, it's almost like the scenery immediately transforms into an Eastern background scenery. And people who hear that sound who are familiar with it, it's like they're brought back home or brought back years past, And another example, a song I wrote called Walking on My Own, that one I'm taking more modern instruments. I'm taking electronic beats and basses, adding a few string instruments, and then finally putting in a pipa to play the melody. So it's the electronic plus pipa at the beginning, so you can imagine it's a very powerful effect, but at the same time it's not. It brings you to a very familiar sound in the very beginning. And so the final thing I can share is my performance at Anhui Chunlan. About 2 years ago, they asked me to sing a very beautiful Chinese song called 我爱你中国. Everybody knows it, right? So it's everybody knows it, so I don't need to explain more about it. But they wanted me to rearrange that song. So then what I did was I started the piece with a very familiar piano piece, the Greek piano concerto. Started with that opening, transitioned that into the song, and then changed up some of the harmonies to have a more systematic accompaniment with that song.
谢谢你的分享。其实刚才汉博的分享是不是就像做菜一样？就是你在这边是出生长大的孩子，对不对？那就像你做一道菜，本身我今天想做个披萨，但是其实我记得好像我妈妈上一代她经常，我很喜欢吃她做的麻婆豆腐，可能也许我就创了把那个2个不同的味道加在一起，然后创造出自己喜欢的味道，因为味道是永远会变化的嘛，对不对？其实做音乐跟我觉得做菜还挺像的。谢谢你的分享。好，那下面这个问题我想给 Professor Wares。那我们的音乐作品呢，其实在最终还是要面对市场的检阅。我们当然希望这个市场越来越大。好，那我们的时间非常的紧张 ，so promoting music, it actually requires a lot of comprehensive consideration and preparation. Can you please share your insights about the music management and promotion between East and the West, and also what suggestions will you give to artists like Yixing who committed to promote M-pop to a larger market?
Okay, there's 2 questions there. I think the first part is about the differences between the Western and Eastern way of managing artists and developing an artist. I touched on it earlier with the difference between developing a global strategy, whereas in the West, usually what's going to happen is that you're going to start to develop an artist, and then later start to expand to look at some of those brand partnerships or other types of opportunities. Now, in terms of breaking into the Western market, that's a very interesting question for me, because I think that we should maybe think about how we ask that question, because I feel as though, you know, the Asian pop genres, K-pop, M-pop, C-pop, J-pop, they've already broken into the West. They're extremely popular. Just look around this room.
You think so?
I think so, yes, absolutely. The challenge is, I think, the real question underneath that is, you know, the recognition, right? Not very many artists, even American artists, can fill out, can headline the Barclays Center in New York, and what's happening next week, right? So what's happening for me is that when I think about this question is like, okay, well, I love what Lei was saying earlier about promoting more diversity in the global market. I think that if we can find that delicate balance between the blend of cultures, that could be a very, very beautiful thing. And I'm a strong promoter of that, where I would hate to see a Chinese artist, a Korean artist, any kind of artist come to the US and just try to make American music, right? I want there to be the balance between the two, right? So in terms of practical strategies, I know that's what everybody wants to hear, in terms of practical strategies to actually break into the West and maybe appeal to that larger market, I'm just going to focus on the US for now. I would say there's maybe 5 pillars. The first one is incorporating some English. You can mix the 2 languages. We've seen it very successfully with you. We've seen it with other K-pop acts as well. And I think that's a viable entry point for Chinese acts or M-pop acts. The second pillar I would say is to collaborate with US artists. Collaborating with US artists that have that sort of, that reach and that fan base already in the US. The third would be working with US-based songwriters and producers to really understand the nuances, and then to find the ways to incorporate those different types of instruments and making something completely new that would appeal to both. And then I would say the fourth, I'm at 4, it's around the differences in social media. In China, with WeChat and Weibo and you know, all the different platforms, they're very different when you come to the US. They're very, very different when you come to the US. And, you know, here, it's dominated by Instagram and TikTok. And the way that we use these platforms is different than the way they're used in China. In China, even the streaming platforms like QQ, you know, there's a lot of fan integration where you can do streaming, you can engage with fans and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that if you want to break into the US market, you should have a team based in the US. A team based in the US who understands the nuances, the differences in social media. And then finally, just to end with that, I would also say that it's important to think about how music is marketed here, especially in terms of social media, playlisting strategies, you know, getting media opportunities to perform on television and get interviews in large American, you know, media outlets like magazines and websites and so on. Yeah.
Wow, thank you.